Okay, well, it is officially 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Time, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Again, this is Sean Murray with Microsoft, and I want to thank everybody from Cloud Slam 11. So far, this conference has gone extremely well this week, and hopefully this session will go as well as the others. But our goal today for the next 60 minutes is to talk a little bit about some of the applications that customers have built on the Windows Azure platform and their experiences with using a platform as a service cloud computing offering. So my name is Sean Murray. I'm the Regional Director for the Windows Azure platform here in the United States. And with me I have a couple of guest speakers that I'll be introducing in just a moment. So at a high level, we'll do the introductions, and then I'll spend about 15 to 20 minutes talking at a high level about Windows Azure. I know that Ron Markovich did the keynote on Monday, and you've had a couple of sessions on Azure throughout the week. But I want to make sure that any new attendees that have just hit this session have the basics. So I'll spend just a few minutes talking at a high level about what our solution does. And then we'll quickly transition to a couple of case studies where we have customers and partners that are building really innovative solutions on the Windows Azure platform. And the first will be a company that's built a global data hub on top of our platform. And then the second is a partnership that we've founded with Intuit to help customers and ISVs build solutions on top as well. So with that, what I'd like to do is I'd like to spend just a moment to introduce the other two speakers as Chaz is getting his audio set up. Alex, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Alex Barnett. I'm a Group Manager for Developer Relations at Intuit, so focused around the Intuit Partner Platform, which you'll hear a little bit about, as well as the Intuit Developer Network.
Great. And I think we have Chaz still. Oh, there's Chaz. Chaz, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Could you just introduce yourself for the crowd? Yes, we can.
Sure. I'm Chaz Cooper, Director of Product Marketing and Management at Xignite, and we are a cloud services company providing online financial market data to applications and websites.
That's perfect. So we'll be having both Chaz and Alex present in just a few minutes. What I'd like to do to start is just give a really quick high level about Microsoft solutions in the cloud, including Windows Azure as well as some of our collaboration tools. And as you can see from this slide, it's a pretty busy slide, but Microsoft's objective is to have all the solutions that a customer might be able to build on-premise themselves, Exchange and SharePoint and desktop applications, as well as an application platform on Windows Server. We want to enable customers and partners to be able to build those in the cloud. So there's a synergy between the on-premise applications like Office and SharePoint and the cloud versions that we call Office 365. And so now you can host Exchange and SharePoint and Word, Excel, and PowerPoint via the web as well. Where I spend most of my time is on the far right of this slide, which is more and more applications that are being built specifically for the cloud. And so moving from a Windows Server IIS kind of implementation on-premise to moving those instances into the cloud in what we call the Windows Azure platform. But this comprehensive solution set enables customers to do whatever they like with whichever application, both on-prem and cloud, or move them back and forth. So you actually have scenarios where customers are building hybrids. Parts of the solution are in the cloud, and parts of the solution stay on-premise because of security or latency or other issues. And so what we're really trying to do is give the customer or the partner the most flexibility and the most choice with regard to where and how the applications are being hosted. So that's our highest level architecture slide. But what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about where we see trends and how things are moving with regard to the public cloud platform. And most applications today are still being run on-prem, as you can imagine, but more and more of these Web 2.0, more and more of these line of business applications are making their way to the cloud. And so this slide is just an example of what we think the portfolio mix of a typical enterprise customer will look like in the next few years. We think that there will always be some applications that have to remain on-prem, again, because of security, latency, maybe just risk tolerance, or maybe it's just something where it doesn't make sense to move it financially from one location to the other, and so you're going to leave a good amount of your applications on-premise in a traditional data center. But the rest of those, as you can see, the mix is pretty high, are going to be moving more towards either infrastructure as a service, public and private implementations, or platform as a service, public and private implementations. And so Microsoft has solutions in all of these areas. On the infrastructure as a service side, obviously you can build solutions with Windows Server, Hyper-V, and our System Center suite of tools that allow you to manage both the on-prem and the cloud offerings. Where I spend my time is on the platform as a service side, and that's really where we're seeing customers take on some really interesting things around internet scale applications. So things that you never would have done on-prem because of the risk or because of the cost or because it was just too time-consuming to do. And we think that a good 20-25% of those applications that typically are either run on-prem or not at all will start to move to the public cloud. And really the public cloud is where we think the majority of the cost savings and the other benefits lie. There are some customers like the federal government, like some of the large financial services institutions that will always maintain a very heavy implementation of private cloud, and they can keep those costs down. But for the average customer, the average partner, public cloud is really where you're going to see a lot of those cost savings occur. And where we think the main workload patterns are these four. And once I get through these and I'll do a high level of Azure, we'll transition to a couple of these scenarios and real-world scenarios. But the four workload patterns that we see that are really optimal for public platform as a service solutions are these four. So the first is what we call on-off. And this is a scenario where someone needs to run a few hundred instances or a few thousand instances, but maybe only for 1 day a week or a few hours a day. Maybe it's a Monte Carlo simulation. Maybe it's something where they have to do a batch processing or a conversion of something, and they need to rent compute or they need to rent instances for a few days or a few weeks, but then they want to turn those back off. And so we have a ton of customers doing things around this, especially in the financial services world. We have a company called Riskmetrics that spins up a few hundred nodes of Windows Azure a night, does some Monte Carlo simulations around the future value of stocks and bonds, and then the next morning they present that data back to their customers, so that they can make better informed decisions. And so it saves them time and money. We also have a company like Pixar that has migrated their RenderMan application, which is the software that they use to build movies like Toy Story 3 and Monsters, Inc. Pixar has ported that application to Windows Azure, and so now you can render movies that normally take hundreds or thousands of servers on-prem. You can now render those in the cloud and produce those movies, those films far more efficiently, and only spin up the resources as you need them. So that's the first scenario, is that kind of on-off. You use them when you need them, but then you turn them back off and you save that cost. The second scenario is the one that I think is the most interesting. It's what we call growing fast. And it's really where you may have an application you want to build, you want to put it on the internet, and you have no idea whatsoever if it's going to take off. And if it does, how many resources or how much you're going to have to put behind that. So we call this scale fast or fail fast. You can deploy an application in a relatively small environment. If it starts to take off, you can dynamically add more resources to take advantage of that, and it will scale automatically. And it grows over time. So this is the Facebook application, the Super Bowl commercial, a Web 2.0 site, any type of really viral campaign that you're going to put on the web. And if it takes off, great. And if not, that's okay, because you haven't invested a whole lot. You can just turn those resources back off. And so the story that I like to talk about here is Kia Motors. That you may have seen their Super Bowl commercial this year, had a UFO or a saucer that teleported one of their Optima cars into the spaceship and then transported it to their world. It was a really science fiction-y kind of a commercial. But they did that commercial with a link back to an Azure site that enabled any customer that went and took a test drive of their vehicle to actually get a $25 gift certificate. And so they had no idea how many users would actually click that link from their Super Bowl commercial. And so they actually spun up a few hundred instances. They monitored it, and when that commercial started hitting the top Super Bowl commercial websites and was on the Today Show and things like that, their traffic spiked dramatically. And so the Windows Azure platform enabled them to grow quickly without having to do a lot of upfront investment. The third and the fourth ones are very similar. It's the scenario where you have an application that normally runs pretty low or steady eddy. You know exactly how many resources, how much is required to run it, but occasionally you have these spikes of traffic. It could be unpredictable, where maybe there was a marketing campaign that you didn't know about, and all of a sudden there's a tremendous demand on your application, on your servers. Or maybe it's more of a predictable model where at the end of the month or the 15th and the 31st or during tax season or during seasonal buying patterns in retail, where you know that for a period of time there's going to be a tremendous spike in traffic, but then it's going to go back down again. And those two, unpredictable bursting and predictable bursting, is really where public cloud takes off, because it enables customers to build applications on-prem and then overdraft or burst into the cloud to use extra resources when necessary. And so the story I have here is Coca-Cola Enterprises. We helped them build an e-commerce solution on top of Windows Azure, and they kept all of their data on-premise in SAP because they didn't want to move all of that data and deal with data replication and security concerns that they had. So they left all of their proprietary pricing, everything that was important to them, on-prem. But they built a front end, a web UI to the application that enabled their customers, gas stations, convenience stores, grocery stores, to order cans and bottles of Coke through the web. And they have these very seasonal patterns. So they sell more soda in the summer, or they sell more soda during big events like the World Cup or the Super Bowl. And so as a result, we can automatically spin up additional resources for them during these predictable cycles, and yet they still have a hybrid app that maintains their security on-prem. So those are just 4 quick little scenarios that we've seen as being optimal workloads or patterns for public cloud and platform as a service in general, and solutions that customers have built on top of the Windows Azure platform. So at a high level, just to give you what the components are, and then I'm going to transition it to Chaz and Alex to talk a little bit about what they've built on top of the Azure platform. If you think about it, this is a true platform as a service offering where each of the components you can use independently or all together to build a solution. At the bottom level, you see that we are very similar to traditional infrastructure as a service providers like Amazon, where you can do compute and storage and database and content delivery network services, etc. But what's unique about our solution is that we actually handle all the management of that infrastructure behind the scenes on behalf of you, the customer. So if you spin up a few hundred servers, we'll patch them, we'll monitor them, we'll make sure that they're healthy and running. If there's something wrong, we'll turn an instance off and we'll spin it up in another rack or another server somewhere else in a different data center and make sure that that application continues to run healthily. And you can actually use these components independently so that you could perhaps maybe use it for storage to start, but then over time you start to build an application that leverages the data that's in Windows Azure to do something unique or something interesting, which is I think what you're going to hear in just a few minutes. So those 2 major components in the Azure platform are the Windows Azure pieces, which think of that as Windows Server. So any application you could build or run on-prem using Windows Server and IIS and Hyper-V, those same types of components have now been moved into the cloud, managed in Microsoft data centers by Microsoft employees. It enables you to get compute and storage and bandwidth, etc. And the second major component in the platform is what we call SQL Azure, which is based on SQL Server, and it allows you to have a fully relational T-SQL implementation of a database in the cloud. And the way that I think of this is this isn't your BI or your data warehousing platform. This is, does your application need relational data services? So do you need a directory? Do you need a product catalog? Do you need to be able to access lots of data in a relational way, still using the stored procedures and queries that you've used on-prem, just moving that data to a cloud provider? And that's what SQL Azure does. And together, those 2 major components with some smaller components that help you kind of glue it all together is what makes up the Windows Azure platform. Now the top layer, if you take away nothing else from my session this morning, I want you to know that this is not just a Microsoft.NET thing. We have fully embraced the open source community, and we want you to build your application on whatever programming language and using whatever development environment you wish. So yes, you can run .NET on the platform, but you can also run Ruby and PHP and Python and Java on the platform as well. And you can use Eclipse as your development language or your IDE if you like. And so what we're really trying to do is provide the most flexibility and the most choice with how you build your application, what languages, how you support it, how you deploy it, and then you can move those applications across the U.S. or across the world in a very seamlessly connected data center environment that's replicated all across the globe. And so that's essentially what the Windows Azure platform is. The key difference is it's a platform. So as a result, we don't provide necessarily raw infrastructure that you can manage at the lowest levels of the operating system. We built a platform where you can develop your app, deploy it to the cloud, and we'll handle everything at the operating system level or below, and you handle everything at the application level or above. So that's the Windows Azure platform. And what we see as trends is that customers and partners and ISVs are building really interesting both finished services, so a complete application that you can use like a SaaS application, a complete environment, email exchange, collaboration type tools, or a building block set of scalable services that you can plug in to your own application. So maybe you need a credit card authentication mechanism, or maybe you need a shipping component, or maybe you need a certain widget that plugs into your app. So we have all these partners and all these SIs that are building really interesting implementations on top of the platform that you can plug into. And so that's where we're going to transition to Alex and Chaz, and they're going to talk a little bit about some of the applications that their companies have built that provide both finished set of services as well as a building block set of scalable services that you can plug in to build your own application. And so the first one that I'm going to bring up, I'm going to introduce Chaz Cooper, who's going to talk a little bit about how to power a global data hub using XIgnite. Chaz, are you there?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Sean. So just so everyone knows, since we're not exactly the most recognized brand name out there, XIgnite is a pure-play cloud services business. Our customers use XIgnite's cloud services to pull live financial market data into their applications or websites. So, for example, if you were to go to Forbes.com's website and do a search for what Microsoft's stock is currently trading at, the Forbes website would come back and tell you exactly what the latest value of Microsoft's stock is, but behind the scenes, their website is getting that stock quote from XIgnite servers rather than going directly back to, say, the stock exchange itself. So that's what XIgnite does as a company. We provide financial market data to applications and websites. And the example I'm about to show you is from one of our customers, Computershare specifically, which is the largest transfer agency and share registration company in the world. I'll explain specifically how Computershare used a single system as a hub for all their real-time financial market data, regardless of where the data comes from or where it's consumed. So the business challenge that Computershare faced was getting data from major exchanges located all around the world out to applications that were also located all around the world. So having grown through many mergers and acquisitions over a number of years, they now have 52 separate applications located everywhere from Europe to South Africa, India, Asia Pacific, Oceania, and these applications give their customers, who are also, by the way, located in all of those various regions, real-time price quotes for the holdings in their portfolios. So, for example, someone in Australia may need a price for some financial instrument they're holding that's actually traded in an exchange in France, while someone in France might need a price quote for a security traded in South Africa, and so on and so forth. So not only are the 52 applications located all over the world, but the data they need is also located all over the world. And, of course, that means that they're operating in every time zone on the planet, making the whole 24/7 by 365 availability an absolute necessity. And on top of all those challenges, as if that's not enough, they also face big cost problems. So financial market data, if you're not in the industry, you may not know that financial market data actually costs money. So stock quotes are not free. You may be able to get them for free on sites like Yahoo or Wall Street Journal's site and so forth, but those sites are actually ultimately paying upstream through various vendors all the way up to the exchange where the financial instruments are traded. So the exchanges where these instruments are traded actually own the rights to the market data, and then they sell them downstream to various vendors and application developers. So if Computershare were to buy separate licenses and build separate systems to get market data, then they run the risk of incurring a lot of duplicated costs. So that just to make the same stock quote essentially available to multiple locations through multiple applications. And that's just the licensing costs. If they had each application get its own data, then they'd also, of course, have to incur all the costs and the time associated with building and maintaining all that infrastructure to pull the data from all the various exchanges around the world into those 52 applications. So to solve all these problems, going to the next slide here. Sean, I don't know if you could advance to the next slide. Thanks. So to solve all these problems, what they decided to do was build a single system to handle market data from everywhere in the world and make it available to all their applications around the world all in real time. So that way they could avoid duplicating the same technology and licensing costs 52 times, and instead incur those costs only once as part of building and maintaining just one centralized global system. So they call this application their Market Data System, or MDS for short. And what it does is it collects data from all of these various exchanges around the world into one place and makes that data then available to the 52 applications that are also in turn located all around the world, all in real time. So how do they get all of this data into their MDS system from financial exchanges around the world? Well, normally this would have taken years to get all the technology in place. They'd have to collocate with many of the exchanges, integrate each exchange's data feeds, store the data, worry about making sure that every system around the world has consistent high performance and scalability. So instead what they did was they decided to use Exignite's cloud service, which provides real-time financial market data as a service over the internet. So all of that technology infrastructure was already built by Exignite and packaged up as part of the service so they wouldn't have to worry about it. So in that case, it only took them 5 months to integrate all the data they needed into their MDS system, and they were up and running. And they completely eliminated all the time and costs of development and maintaining their own high-performance systems to collect all that data from exchanges all over the world. And instead, that meant that they were able to focus their engineering resources on their own systems, on the MDS system itself, on the 52 applications that they have around the world, and of course the integration points between MDS and those systems. So, but I think really here the big lesson learned is not just about this one specific case, although Computershare's case is very interesting and a great demonstration of the value of cloud services. I think really the big lesson here is actually in the way we think about what the cloud can do in terms of the technology stack. So we're all familiar with how cloud computing has virtualized hardware, and more recently, as with Azure and many of the things that Sean just mentioned, how the entire platform for software development and deployment has been virtualized into the platform as a service model. And of course, even before then, we've all been aware of software as a service, where the end user uses an application that is, in a sense, virtualized by being hosted over the internet. But the other way to look at it is also in terms of the tiers within an application that uses a typical N-tier architecture. So in our case, what we do at Exignite is we virtualize the data access layer for applications, and in our case in particular, for applications that need financial market data. So increasingly, I'm seeing software applications and websites of all sorts that are using cloud service APIs as part of their core functionality, the same way that Computershare used Exignite's cloud services to handle much of their own data access layer for their MDS system. So if we were to go to the next slide, what I want to give you in this next slide is a sense of where we are on the adoption curve here. So You might be wondering, is this concept of using cloud services for the data layer a bleeding edge sort of thing or not? Will it take off or be just another pipe dream of some crazy startup company that's destined to fail? And well, you might be surprised to find out that cloud services are already being used as the data layer by quite a few companies, including some of the largest companies in the world. So what you see here are just a few of Xignite's customers, and in total we have about 900 customers today, and that number is not only growing but accelerating. So using cloud services for the data layer specifically is by no means a futuristic vision, but very much a reality that's already prevalent today and becoming even more so all the time. So moving on to the next slide here. And I think that trend is largely why you saw Microsoft launch the Data Market initiative, in particular last year, to give applications a way to get access to these sorts of cloud service APIs to provide a wide variety of different kinds of data. So if you're looking for more information on this topic, I would suggest if you're looking for financial market data, definitely take a look at the Xignite site. Or if you're looking for non-financial specific data, you can also find a lot of similar resources and similar cloud services to the ones that I just mentioned in this example as a part of Data Market's Azure Marketplace site that you see in the URL here. So that pretty much wraps up my part of the presentation.
Great, Chaz. I really appreciate it. And if you'll just stay on, we'll probably have some questions about your piece when we get to the end. But thank you very much.
Sure.
What I'd like to do now is I'd like to introduce Alex Barnett, who's going to talk a little bit about how Microsoft and Intuit have partnered to enable solutions for ISVs to build applications on the platform. Alex, are you there?
I am. Thanks, Sean. Yep, so this is Alex Barnett from Intuit. What I wanted to do is share with you a partnership that Intuit and Microsoft put together. It's called, it's actually a program called Frontrunner for the Intuit Partner Platform, which I think is a kind of a new kind of relationship that we wouldn't have necessarily been able to do or even want to do a few years ago. And the advent of the cloud has created some new opportunities for us to work together and in fact provide some interesting solutions to ISVs to solve a number of areas that they have interest within. So what I wanted to do is cover briefly what the program is and why we're doing it, what we've done specifically for this program with respect to the Intuit Partner Platform and how it works with Azure. I wanted to also give you some context around what the Intuit Partner Platform is as well, and how ISVs can benefit through the partnership that we've put together here. So just a little bit of background. So the Intuit Partner Platform is a developer offering that we have. It's part of the Intuit Developer Network. It builds really over one of the key assets that we have at Intuit, which is QuickBooks product. We've got 4.5 million small business customers that use QuickBooks in the United States. And the data that sits on that desktop is really pretty valuable. And so we've built out a platform that goes beyond what we might describe as a traditional kind of QuickBooks SDK that allows you to be able to build out solutions that work with your QuickBooks data, and in fact build out a platform that really takes advantage of the web and the cloud and the way that we're able to start getting some of that data off the desktop, making it available in the cloud for developers then to be able to program against, so that developers don't have to worry about programming and getting the data back onto the desktop. The Intuit Partner Platform actually takes care of that. We provide a REST-based web API that developers are able to program against. We also provide something called the Intuit App Center, which is an online destination that we have for small businesses for them to be able to find, try, buy, and use web apps that work with QuickBooks, and they work together by virtue of the fact that they will work with QuickBooks. So we're using the QuickBooks data effectively as the source of truth for these different applications. And so That's what Intuit App Center is. And so for the ISV, what we have are fundamentally two core components of value. One is access to our customer data, which allows their solutions then to work with QuickBooks data. And the second piece is access to the small business customer base and the channel. So we drive a ton of customers through to Intuit App Center where they can find apps that work with QuickBooks. We partnered with Microsoft because we recognized a couple of things. One is that there are a number of ISVs that are still making that transition from the desktop out into the cloud. And as they do that, they need a platform to be able to, effectively not just host the application, but act as a real platform. So what we've got with the partner program here is a solution for ISVs to be able to build their applications onto Azure and then sell those applications that work with QuickBooks data through our platform. And fundamentally, that's what the Frontrunner program allows us to do. So we click on the next slide, please. So on this slide, what I wanted to discuss is some of the work that we've done to create what we call the Intuit Partner Platform SDK for Windows Azure. What it is, it's if you think about what's required to be able to sell an app on our App Store, there are several points of integration. One is we want to be able to provide a single sign-on experience for all of these apps for the users. We want them to be able to have apps that work with the QuickBooks data. We want them to be able to use our billing. We have a billing system that we then charge the customer for that SaaS application. And we want the app to use our user management so that we're able to control data access over that data at a pretty granular level. So what we built out is effectively the SDK that allows a developer that's building on Azure to sell that application into the Intuit Partner Platform. Let me click through again. Now, as I mentioned, once you've actually got your application built on Azure, you're able then to use the SDK to do the integration with single sign-on and make it available through Intuit App Center with the data integrated. Intuit App Center itself is it's a couple of years old. It's growing pretty quickly. We've got over 900,000 registered customers on the platform now using applications that are available through Intuit App Center. And for those customers, apart from the services we're able to provide, we've also have mechanisms for them to be able to discover new applications, try them really easily, and for them to be able to work with the data that they're using. And for ISVs that are getting onto the platform, we have a number of different ways to be able to create demand for those applications. So within, for example, QuickBooks itself, we have now a navigational device to be able to highlight apps that are new on App Center and then drive traffic. We have a number of different marketing programs, including placements on App Center, inclusion in newsletters and communications, so that we're able to really kind of drive that demand of the apps that work with QuickBooks and get them to use those applications. And next. So in this partnership, what we've done is provided not just the SDK, but where it's been really actually awesome working with Microsoft and their team has been able to provide technical resources to be able to help these developers build out their solutions or migrate them onto Azure. So we've got free technical support for those ISVs. We provide the free online training as well, and really make sure that they're from a technical, a design, architectural, and actual development standpoint, that these ISVs are succeeding in getting their apps onto Azure in the first place, and then what we call federate those applications into Intuit App Center. We also provide a number of benefits from a go-to-market standpoint. And again, Microsoft provides funds, as we do at Intuit, to be able to, specifically for those apps that are onto Azure, to be able to then do specific marketing drives for those applications to be able to drive demand to those apps. And there's a few other kind of marketing benefits, but fundamentally it's both, the technical support we're providing and then the marketing support for those apps once they go live. Next, please. What's been interesting as well is, as we've learned more and more about our customers and the solutions that they're looking for, is we've been able to share that kind of research with our customers, and they tell us what kinds of solutions, what kind of applications do they want to be able to find that work with QuickBooks. And so here's a list of the kinds of applications that customers are really looking for. This is not everything in terms of what a customer might want, but this is specifically research-led data that tells us, if you are doing custom reporting and able to do that against their QuickBooks data, our customers are telling us that they're very interested in solutions that are able to do that. For example, estimating and others, estimating and bidding solutions, e-commerce, inventory management, scheduling, dispatch. There's a number of very interesting areas where ISVs have a solution to be able to come in and work with their QuickBooks data and get in front of these small business customers and actually solve those solutions for them. So it's an interesting opportunity for an ISV to be able to get through to customers through our platform. Next, please. And just this is a sample of the kinds of solutions that are available on Intuit App Center. With respect to the program, FrontRunner program, we've already had, I think it's now 6 live applications that have gone live since we launched the program just a few months ago. And we're seeing something like maybe as much as 70 applications now in the pipeline getting built out on our platform, and we expect to go live over the course of the next few months, which is just awesome to be able to work with Microsoft and partner with them and to be able to take advantage of the Azure platform and then get these awesome solutions to market, get them in front of small business customers, and continue building out the ecosystem that we're building out here at Intuit. And next. So if you happen to be an ISV and you want to find out more, go to intuit.msdev.com and you can find out about the program there and start downloading the SDK and start learning more about the opportunities there. With that, back to you, Sean.
Okay, great. We've got a few questions in the queue, and I want to take this opportunity to ask everybody that's an attendee, if you have a question you'd like to ask, go ahead and put it in the Q&A panel, and we'll go through them in the order in which we got. But thank you, Alex, for that great comment around Intuit and Microsoft partnership. And we actually have a question for you, Alex, from Laura, who is asking specifically, what was the thought process around choosing the Azure platform as opposed to maybe Google or Amazon or some of the other cloud providers? Can you talk a little bit further about that?
Yeah, certainly. So I think fundamentally, we think about us as being technology agnostic. What we're most interested in from the Intuit Partner Platform side is being able to get the best solutions out there that exist today and those that are going to be built out in the future, and make those solutions available to our small business customers through our platform. So in fact, anybody that is building on Amazon today would be able to get onto the Intuit Partner Platform. So it's not closed in that sense. You're able to federate in. What makes Azure particularly interesting, I think, is that they have historically a very large number of ISVs that have built out on the Windows generations of platforms over the years. And we see Azure as being just a really major player in the whole platform as a service space, and we know that ISVs are wanting to be able to provide, internet scale applications out in the cloud, and so making sure that we make it dead easy for those kinds of applications and those developers to be able to, once they've done so, build out onto Azure, is to make sure that we've got a great path to be able to have those solutions made available onto Intuit App Center. So we see that whole ecosystem that over the course of the years that Windows and Microsoft has built out with, the technologies and the tool sets and the platforms, is just as a natural reason to partner with Microsoft and be able to help those ISVs play within our ecosystem as well.
And Laura, this is Sean. I'll just address it from a Microsoft perspective. I think some of the things that we think about differently than maybe some of the other providers you mentioned. The first is we're really focused on true enterprise availability. So we provide things like SLAs. Amazon does too, but some of the others that you mentioned don't. And then we also focus on providing, I think Alex even alluded to this, actual physical people support. So if you have a Premier agreement with Microsoft and you have support for your on-premise offerings, your servers on-prem, you can use that exact same 1-800 number, that exact same support engineer to help you escalate issues for Windows Azure. And so we have direct personnel support as well. Not to mention it is a platform, so we do patch it, monitor it, spin it up, replicate it, make multiple copies, and all the things that you would expect from a platform cloud provider. Okay, we have another question from Landon who was asking me, curious about how Microsoft is leveraging Azure internally. How are we using it to manage big data? How is it used to deploy and virtualize older Microsoft projects such as Office 360 and so on? And it's a great question, and I'll say to start, the Windows Azure platform has been in market for about 14 or 15 months. And so we were one of the first adopters of the platform ourselves internally. We have a number of applications that we've run on it, but most of them, to start, were not the mission-critical line of business applications that we use to drive our business. They were things like our annual charity giving campaign. We provided it was a very cyclical, spiky site that we only needed for 60 days, and so we built up a site around charity auctions on Azure. We've migrated some of our less mission-critical applications to the platform. Our vision, though, is that all of the offerings that we have in, quote-unquote, the cloud will be made available through Azure, both our public applications like Office 365, but also our own personal internal applications. And so, for example, we're working on our licensing and pricing application, which is our, obviously the bread and butter of our business. We're moving that application onto Azure to support the cyclical patterns that we have around the end of year and around end of fiscal and summer and things like that. So it is a long journey, but we are in the process of moving a number of our applications internally to Microsoft to Azure. And then over the next few years, you'll see all of the servers, all of the products that we offer today on-prem. In fact, at the highest levels of Microsoft, Steve Ballmer on down, every product has to be enabled for Azure in the future on the roadmap of that product. And if it's not, there has to be a very, very strong explanation as to why. And so we think probably the only app that will not be on Azure is something like Bing Maps or Bing Search, which is so specific and so highly optimized for that environment that moving it to Azure actually wouldn't give us a tremendous amount of cost savings or management overhead savings. But everything else is going to move to Azure over time. All right, I'll pause there. Does anybody else that we have about 50 attendees online. Are there anybody else that have some questions for either Chaz or Alex or myself with regard to why or how to build an application on the platform? Looks like we got one more coming in here. Nope, okay. Give everybody a couple more minutes. And with that, what we'll do, you can see the links that are links to both Windows Azure, the XIgnite, as well as the Intuit Frontrunner program. We will make these slides available through the CloudSlam site. If you'd like to get further information about any of these offerings. I'm going to say going once on any of the questions. Going twice. All right. Well, it's 1:45, and so I think we'll bring this session to a close. On behalf of Alex and Chaz and the Cloud Slam 2011 community, I'd like to thank everybody for their attention today. I know I learned a lot, and I think there probably was a lot of information exchanged throughout the session. Thanks, and have a great day.